I was securing the last bolt on my new security gate when the shriek of tires on gravel ripped through the silence. A battered white sport utility vehicle roared toward me, kicking up a dust cloud that burned my eyes out. Leapt Sandra wearing hiking boots, neon leggings, and a fanny pack bulging as if she was geared for war. She bull-charged the gate, face, flushed, panting like I'd just burned her house down before I could open my mouth. She stuck her phone in my face, hands shaking, and yelled, "You're being recorded. You're illegally obstructing a historic trail." Her voice shook, half hysterical, half absurd. I remained there, wrench in hand, work boots in the ground, trying not to laugh as she yelled into her phone, "911, I'm calling about a man for holding hostages. He's holding citizens on a public trail." It was ridiculous, but the craziness wasn't humorous for long. In a matter of minutes, sheriff's cruisers shouted down streetlights, blinding sirens, blazing Sandra, thrashing her arms as if directing a jet onto a carrier. This would not be a silent Saturday. The deputies hadn't even finished unbuckling before Sandra tore towards them, flapping wildly. "He's stopping the historic path," she shrieked, poking a finger at my gate. "People are stuck all the way back through Reno water, no nourishment. He's a beast." Her tale was so uncontrollable the junior deputy blinked like he was unraveling a fever dream. I walked over, wiped my hands across a rag, and indicated the 6 in-your-face private property notices affixed to the fence. The older deputy, Grimes, gave me the once-over, then shifted to Sandra. "Ma'am, could you produce us this public trail?" he inquired, voice measured, as if he was cradling a live grenade. Sandra bristled, stormed to the gate, and in a movement, straight from a slapstick movie, got the lock wrapped. Her yanked hard, slipped, and tumbled back into the ground. One sandal in flight froze. She thrashed about in a bush, the younger deputy coughing to stifle a laugh. Sandra scrambled to her feet, one bear undeterred. She set off on a rant about the people's land claiming her great-aunt's neighbor's dog walker came here in the 70s. I blinked in wonder at her mental acrobatics. The deputies, unmoved, demanded my evidence. I retrieved a folder from my truck deeds county records, a surveyor's report, all certified, notarized, laminated. I'd learned never to underestimate busybodies like Sandra Grimes, skimmed the papers, then told Sandra, "This is private land. No public trail exists. You need to leave." Her face turned plum-purple steam practically hissing from her ears. "I'll have your badge," she screamed. "I know the mayor." Grimes shrugged. "Unless the mayor rewrites property law, you're trespassing." Sandra switched gears, snapping photos of my gate truck, even the deputies muttering historical society. The news all could be sorry. She limped to her SUV, slammed the door, and took off, leaving a cloud of dust in her single sandal. I figured that would be the end of it, but my stomach roiled. Sandra wasn't the kind of person to creep away. She doubled back, and sure enough, by night, flyers covered town save our trail. They screamed with a photoshopped image of me as a sneering villain. They said I was imprisoning hikers, erasing heritage, stealing public land, ridiculous if not for Sandra's deadly earnest campaign. I sat on my porch, sweet tea in hand, watching the sun set over my land. The gate was my line in the sand, and Sandra had declared war. She had no idea how ironclad my rights were, how every document was bulletproof, or that my security cameras had recorded her 911 stunt and tumble as crickets chirped. I grinned if she thought the gate was trouble. She'd soon learned she'd only scratched the surface by Monday. Sandra's weekend plotting was evident. Neon flyers were duct taped to my mailbox fence posts, even the gas station bulletin board yelling about an evil land baron caging families behind steel. A low-angle shot of my gate at dusk attempted to make it sinister, but the actual bombshell was drone photos of my land taken without permission. I peeled a flyer off my windshield, shaking my head. Sandra thought clip art and lies would shatter me. She was going to get schooled that afternoon. Shouts rang out from my backyard property. I walked down, phone in hand, and found Sandra with a ragtag group board teens. A guy with a megaphone screaming gibberish balloons bobbed on my fence posters covered the gate. A petition table shook nearby. Sandra saw me and pointed. "There he is," she yelled like she'd caught a fugitive. The crowd half-heartedly waved fists. I leaned against a post, waiting for her next step. "We demand you open the trail." Sandra waved a clipboard as if it were a weapon. I requested proof it was public. She stuttered, then vomited gibberish about common law access and historic tradition, throwing in pseudo-legal jargon when I requested a lawyer or city support. She prattled on about city hall affiliations. I nodded, pretending awe, then said, "Unless you've got a court order, you're trespassing." Her face twisted. She taped herself, narrating like a war correspondent. I whipped out my phone, displaying a cease and desist letter from my attorney, referencing her illegal drone photos and defamation. "You've got 24 hours to take down all flyers, withdraw your lies, and apologize, or else I'll sue you through next year." Sandra gasped fish-like. Her crowd mumbled, feeling defeat. The seer ones picked up their signs and slunk away. Sandra dissolved down, yelling about suing me, the governor, the Supreme Court. I walked off, whistling, her voice diminishing behind me by morning. Most flyers were disappeared. Sandra probably had a lousy night scrubbing them away. I hoped she'd stop, but I'd underestimated her again. Days later, I woke to horn blowing and chants on my porch. I saw Sandra with 20 protesters' signs that read, "Free the path," lawn chairs, even a dude cooking hot dogs like it was a tailgate. Sandra took a megaphone. "This man holds hostage our community. We won't leave until justice is done." She pushed it towards me. "What do you say, oppressor?" I smiled. Recording smile Sandra after a half hour of their yelling. I called the sheriff, the dispatcher. Antics were legendary sentient deputies. They came, sized up the circus, and gave Sandra an option: disperse or face trespassing charges. Her followers, sunburned and bored, realized they were on private property for nothing. They packed up, leaving Sandra alone, kicking a cooler in anger, swearing about lawsuits. I waved as she stormed away, thanking the deputies. The trail was peaceful once more, but I knew Sandra, she'd try again, and her next mistake would be larger. Days passed, suspiciously serene. Sandra's quiet meant she was cooking up something reckless. Late one night, my security system beeped. I checked the feed jaw. Clenching there was Sandra with 2 lackeys sneaking around my back gate with flashlights and bolt cutters. They fumbled like bumbling spies, whispering as Sandra the chain. I leaned back, sipping a soda, ready for the show, as her cutters snapped the chain. Floodlights blazed, alarms wailed, and a robotic voice boomed, "You're being recorded, police are en route." Sandra shrieked. Dropping the cutters, one crony tripped into thistles. Another froze flashlight, blinding himself. I watched, grinning, as cruisers roared up. Deputies spilled out barking orders. Sandra sobbed, claiming she was saving the trail. Her friends blamed each other, swearing they were just along for the ride. Sandra, never learning, ranted about constitutional rights, misking amendments. Deputies cuffed her, reminding her to shut up. Her crew was cuffed too, their bravado gone at the station. Sandra demanded the chief mayor governor, calling her act a stand against crimes against humanity. Deputies, unfazed, booked her for trespassing, vandalism, and tampering. Her friends bailed out fast, leaving her to stew by morning. The town buzzed. Diners laughed over Sandra's trail heist, hashtags like Gatecrasher trending with memes of her as a bolt cutter wielding bandit. I remained silent, allowing her to implode. My attorney prepared charges of property damage and harassment and a restraining order to keep Sandra away from my property. She had a pathetic press conference complaining about oppression to board reporters. A deputy breezily held my deed for cameras, undermining her news segments featured her arrest, rather than her speech with my land records in the spotlight. The city denied her threat to destroy my gate, notice her of legal fees for unfounded suits. I placed their letter next to my deed. Sandra's world came apart. The historical society displaced her stores, shunned her. Her ranting became more erratic, estranging her final allies. I enhanced security, installing cameras, and relished the peace. The court hearing loomed, and I prepared meticulously. Deed surveys, permits, video evidence of Sandra's offenses, her illegal drone photographs. Sandra, in the meantime, posted raving diatribes online, her Save Our Trail campaign flopping during the hearing. I had arrived polished, serene. Sandra burst in late in a justice for trails, blouse and muddy boots, holding a folder. Her dwindled posy, following the judge, a no-nonsense woman, insisted on evidence. My lawyer had a fortress of proof, deeds records, videos, photos. Sandra gave a tearful speech about ancestral paths and greed, without documents, just blurry photos. The judge, unimpressed, grilled her. Sandra floundered, exposed. My lawyer sought damages for the gate, legal fees, and a restraining order permanent. Sandra objected, alleging civil liberties, but the judge lost her temper. Trespassing isn't a right, she warned Sandra. Her drone stunts and defamation left her open to more suits. The decision was merciless fines for trespassing, restitution for damages, a 500-foot restraining order, and 30 days to withdraw her lies. Sandra froze, fists clenched as her supporters slunk out outside. She ranted to cameras about corruption, tears streaking her face, while I declined comment, and drove off news headlines buried her landowner triumphs. Trail lies debunked, her meltdown clips went viral. The town done with her Sandra's world collapsed. She was banned from local groups, shunned by stores, her posts ignored. She moved away a pariah. I added a wrought iron sign to my gate, private trail protected by law and logic trespassers. Live streamed for amusement. It became a local attraction snapped by passers-by, featured on blocks. Neighbors praised my stand, inviting me to barbecues. The trail was mine, peaceful again. One evening on my porch with coffee, I watched the sunset. The hills glowing, Sandra's chaos had tested me, but I'd held firm with truth, not tantrums. She tried to steal my peace and lost everything, my land, my gate. My quiet stood stronger, a testament that right, like a good gate, doesn't budge.